we'll have a Q&A. Are we recording? Okay, thank you, Ramendi. It's one of the punishments of coming to this is that Ramendi never met a rabbi who's not a Rav Gaon, so I have to suffer through that. Thank you, Ramendi. Thank you, Rabbi Schmerler, for all his support and all his help with this event tonight and
What's
the book
his
in general.
idea?
As we looking around, we see it's a success. And Mr. Shem will do for any other rabbi from the RAA who publishes a sefer. Please let us know so that we can do a similar event. We want to do this kind of event in the future. Thank you, Israel Mizrahi, for opening up his doors. I'm here a few times a month. The true story, at first, when Mizrahi opened up his bookstore, I refused to come here because I knew I couldn't afford it. It would be difficult. He's tricked me into coming here because someone bought me a book and he wouldn't send it to me. He said, you live so nearby, you have to come pick it up. And once you step in the door here, you look around, you realize, anyone watching the video has no idea, there are over 500,000 titles in this book. We're on ground floor. There's a floor upstairs, floor downstairs. Here is for browsing and buying, very cheap. And upstairs and downstairs is for the online. And so there's just an incredible selection of anything, any topic under the sun, anything related to Judaism, to Bible, is all here. It's mind-blowing. You come in here, Baruch Hashem, nothing's too expensive, but you can expect to your wallet to be a little lighter when you leave, but you'll be carrying a heavy load. I want to mention that the MTJ dinner is tonight. They're honoring our chaver Rabbi Akiva Hamnick. Wish him a mazel tov on this well-deserved honor. We have a few simchas tonight. People who could not be here. Rabbi Blank came early, before the chasana, just because he's such a wonderful mensch. And to be mitzvah, to be part of this event, even though he couldn't actually be here. And Rabbi Klass, I saw on Shabbos. Rabbi Tannenbaum has a grandson getting married tomorrow night. I was at the Ofrov over on Shabbos, so Mazel Tov to the Rabbi Tannenbaum, the whole mishpacha. I want to thank my publisher, Alec Goldstein from Kodesh Press, who could not be here tonight because he has so many things going on tonight. Also, Igud convention, so many things going on. So I appreciate everybody who came here. It's a packed room. And I also, of course, I have to thank my wife, Miriam, who is basically this book and not anything else that I write would not exist without her incredible support. So I'll confess to something. I used to be very bad with directions. Everywhere I went, I had to add an extra half hour for me to get lost and find my way back. GPS is a game changer. The GPS has artificially given me the skill of directions that I naturally lack. And I can now go from place A to place B like a normal human being, not like someone who gets lost in his own living room. And I'm saying this because it represents everything that we have been discussing for the past 20 years. So I'll give you a little background. This book comes from my blog. So the only reason anybody knows me is because 20 years ago, I started a blog at the time when it was new. And the reason I started because someone else had started a blog, someone from the conservative movement, talking about halacha and LGBT issues. I thought it was just misrepresenting the sources. It's just an honest scholarly discussion. And I started commenting on his blog and saying, I don't think your reading is right. I read it this way, I read it. I realized he's at the top, and I'm at the bottom in little letters. So I said, okay, you know what? I'll start my own blog. And that way I'll have big letters on top, and I'll be able to argue peer-to-peer, so to speak. What happened was, a lot of people read it and came and started commenting. Rabbonim, professors, and most amazingly, the lay people in our community who are so learned and have so much interest in Torah and halacha and hashkafa came and started. Created a dialogue and a conversation. I said, I guess people want me to continue. So I started writing 5 days a week for multiple years. I'm not going to go through the whole stories in the book and the introduction of the book. Exactly what happened. Eventually, blogs became yesterday's news. But until then, the Igud convention, I don't know if anybody remembers, 2006, the Igud convention had a whole major Moshe Shabbos session on blogs. Before that, Reb Chaim David Zubel called me up. We had a conversation about what a blog is, and he wanted to hear my input because he's a mensch and he wants to hear what people have to say. And that was the only time I ever went to a Igud convention. I drove Moshe Shabbos to Connecticut, and he gave a fantastic speech about the dangers, about the issues. Other people were a little more fire and brimstone, and some people were more moderate. It was a thing, and because of my blog, the RCA asked me to speak at their convention two times. It's just because and who was I? I'm just a guy writing So eventually I started writing in newspapers and magazines. I worked at the OU, and they brought me into the publication area. It's in the book. Not blogging anymore. Now I have what you might call a magazine online, Torah Musings. But for 20 years, the past 20 years, I've been writing online about the cutting-edge issues that people are talking about. And what I found is community leaders look to the blogs and the websites to see what are people talking about. And I've been privileged to be part of that conversation, mainly because I got there early, and because I have incredible stamina. I just never gave up. And my wife never yelled at me. I don't know why. 20 years, she never yelled at me about it.
Because you respect scholarship and Torah.
Or because she doesn't need me. I don't know. Whatever it is. She's an Eishes Chayil, a true Eishes Chayil. She realized this is my chelik in Torah. This is how I teach and how I learn. And she fully supported that. So technology, like we were talking about with GPS, technology empowers the individual. Right? It takes a skill that used to be specialized and spreads it around. And everybody has, if not the full skill, at least some of that skill. I still not. You put me in a forest, I will get lost. But I can drive from place A to place B with no problem, more or less. My wife might disagree, but more or less, no problem. So, think of a musician. So it used to be there were people who had perfect pitch. And when they sang, they hit every note, mamish on it. They did one take or however many takes they needed, but they hit. Then they came up, I think it was in the late 1990s, they came up with something called auto-tune, where someone who's pretty good, the machine fixes the pitch and makes it perfect pitch. So it used to be a very specialized skill. It's now available to lots of people. Not everybody. Let me tell you, if auto-tune got a hold of me, I'd break the machine. But for people who are close, who are in the range, it fixes it. It spreads the skill more broadly. Desktop publishing. Remember that? Some of you might remember when that became a thing in the 1990s. Before that, you publish a newsletter. Yeah. You were literally cutting and pasting. You needed a typesetter, a graphic designer. Then came WordPerfect. Right. Then came WordPerfect and Word. They call it desktop publishing. Yep. What used to be a specialized skill, now anybody can do it from their computer, from their laptop, from their phone. Yeah. Right. These are simple examples of something that affects almost every area of life. The breadth of knowledge is something that's much more to the point. It affects every discipline, but Torah as well. Online libraries. I used to work about 2 blocks from the New York Public Library in Midtown, which has a Dorot division of unbelievable Sfarim selection, and I'd go there every day at lunch, look up Sfarim. I stopped going.
On the ground floor, as you
They moved it. It used to have a place, a covered. Now they moved it into a small little area, and everything's whatever. I don't need it anymore. I just go to HebrewBooks.org. I've never figured out how to get onto Orsar Chachma, but it's an unbelievable resource. They have. You don't need to go to a library. From my own phone, I could look up all the volumes of Chashukei Chemed. You could just look it up online. And if you have a searchable database, Google. You could Google in Hebrew and English. You'll come up with a wide collection of articles on any subject of Torah. Please come on in. Please come in. Please come in. So if you have general familiarity with the Torah subject, computers, the internet gives incredible amount of access that used to be reserved for the unique scholars of the community. It's now almost anybody can do it. You're the yeshiva, basic sugyas, basic halacha. You can Google anything. You could Bar line anything.
Paskin Shabbos for you too.
Hold on, we'll get there. We'll get there in a minute. The Gemara in Harius, Yadalit Amalaf talks about the Rosh Yeshiva in Bavel passed away, and they needed to appoint a new Rosh Yeshiva. The question was, who should it be? Should it be Rav Yosef or Rava? Rav Yosef was known as a Sinai. He had a fantastic memory, complete recall, total recall of the entire oral Torah. Rabba, very very learned, but he was brilliant. He was Oker Horem. He could uproot mountains with his logic. He could figure out what the answer should be, while Rav Yosef knew it automatically. So who should be appointed the head of the yeshiva? So there's a big discussion about that, and the conclusion was Rav Yosef. There's more to the story, but they concluded the most important thing is a good memory. Sinai is more important. Rav Shlomo Kluger, in a Ha'ara to Pri Megadim, and Or Chaim Kuf Lamed Vav. Very few Rav Shlomo Kluger's on the bottom of at least the old editions of Shulchan Aruch. So he says that was before they published the Talmud. Once they publish a Talmud, anybody can look it up. You have a familiarity with it, fine. You don't remember everything. You know where to find it. Look it up. That you had to be a Talmud Chacham to be able to look it up. Then came the Shulchan Aruch. Then came the Be'er Heitev and the Mishnah Brura. Then came the internet.
And actually,
Art Scroll, Sensino, Steinsaltz, Mesivta.
Wow.
You can find anything. So you have to have a familiarity. You can't just open up a Mesivta Gemara from scratch and paskin a Shaila. Well, once you've learned through shots, once or two times, you don't have to know it by heart. And there's Rav Shlomo Kluger says we de-emphasize memorization because it's not so important. More important is to know how to learn and to learn.
Shlomo Kluger is learning that Sinai means memory, or that he had access to know where to look. That he mamish knew it Baal Peh? Is that the...
There were. I mean, in every yeshiva, you had to have a Tana who knew everything by heart.
Over,
And Rav Yosef seemed to be he was a Sinai because he knew everything. He knew everything by heart.
So
Rashi on that Gemara says Rabbi, who was the Oker Harim, he also knew everything. I mean, he learned through through Shas also, but he didn't remember it so well like a normal human being. But he was so brilliant, he could figure it out. You have to have some familiarity. You can't just start off from out of the blue and pass in a Shaila. You have to. But memorization, with all due respect to the Teimanim, is not the end-all and be-all anymore, because now we have the internet. And this is another example, a most important example, of technology empowering individuals. We're more independent. We don't rely on the scholars who know everything anymore, because we, with a quick Google search, can find everything.
Like the periodic table in chemistry. You don't memorize it, you look up the table.
I mean, I'm ours. I know what a periodic table is. That's the extent of my knowledge of chemistry. So the publication of the Talmud, in what was it, 450, 500, that enabled people, empowered people who don't have perfect recall, and then you had the Shulchan Aruch, and then you had summary texts like the Be'er Heitev, Mishnah Brura, then you have the internet, and now everybody has a vast amount of Torah at their fingertips. So let's think about a stockbroker. Rabbi Shulman, your father was a stockbroker. Not the kind of stockbroker I'm talking about. In the old days, you wanted to trade, you wanted to get a good stock tip. You had to call up a stockbroker and say, what's doing? What are people buying? What are people selling? What's a hot tip? And then he would do the trade for you. He would do the research. He was your expert. Nowadays, you can go to online forums, find stock tips. You can research any company, and you can trade online. Stockbrokers, I'm not sure I don't know how big a profession it is anymore. I don't know who's using them. But you would be very unwise to take stock tips uncritically from the internet. Because you get all sorts of crackpot theories, all sorts of people trying to trick you, all types of people saying crazy things. Everybody still wants to hear what Warren Buffett has to say. Because he's a mumcha, he's an expert. Bill Ackman, all these people. Because the people who really know better than the random person online. Googling will not get you what Warren Buffett could give you. So the challenge of the internet, in my mind, there's all sorts of problems. But the challenge, the theoretical challenge, is how independence affects our religious lives. So nobody can be completely independent. Because you know what happens if everyone's independent? There's no organized religion at all. Everybody does their own thing. And that doesn't work. So if we're from Jews, we need a shul, we need schools, we need an eruv, we need kashrus. So we can't be all independent completely. But more than that, if you're figuring it out on your own, everybody is their own expert, there's a very real danger of going very far off course, off the reservation. And history has shown us time and again, when people give up on the experts and try to chart their own course, they go in very far, very quickly. It's not a slippery slope. They're skiing down the mountain. Because everybody's biased to their own desires. Everybody's partial to their own ideas. And when you're creating your own religion, when you're making your own decisions, it will always end up, coincidentally, to be convenient and fit into your preconceived ideas. Guaranteed. History has proven it time and again. When you're making up, or you're making decisions on what religion is, you're basically forming God in your own image. You're creating your own religion, which inevitably has very little real spiritual meaning and is impossible to transmit to your children because they're going to be making up their own religion on their own as well. Yeah. We've seen it over the past 150 years, 250 years. We've seen it happen time and again. Everybody says, no, we're doing it differently, and everybody ends up in the same place. So the Lamaisa, Judaism needs authority, or it's not Judaism, and it's not even a religion. On the other hand, technology undermines authority because it spreads the skills and spreads the independence, so you don't need authority anymore. So how do we balance these two ideas? On the one hand, independence. On the other hand, authority. It's a question that came up when the printing press was created. And now it's a question when the internet was created. It gives independence to everybody. And this has been the underlying theme of what I've been talking about for the past 20 years online. We've been struggling with this as we get so much access to so much material, but we also recognize that we need our community, we need our authority, we need our gedolim. Okay, now I'm going to go to the controversial part. So some of you might remember in 2012 there was a big asifa in City Field to deal with the internet.
Yes.
A big gathering, all the Orthodox Jews went there. I didn't go, but I had multiple Rabbonim call me up saying, please go, please go. I did not go, but it was live streamed, so I watched it anyway because someone brought a smartphone, and the net result of that was to ban the internet and to call on schools to expel children whose parents have access to the internet. So from where I live, where I operate in the spectrum of Judaism, that is extreme, impractical, and disconnected from the reality of our lived lives. Might not be for everybody, but that's where I am situated. So, okay, if we want to talk about disconnected, I'll make a tangential remark. There's they put out, shuls have parsha newsletters every week in the shuls. There's one that talks about technology, trying to discourage technology. So 2 weeks ago, someone showed me, 2 or 3 weeks ago, someone showed me, see, there's a quote from one of the biggest Rosh Yeshiva in America saying, Torah learned on the internet is not Torah. So I responded, well, Torah on a newsletter is not Torah, so I don't have to pay attention to that. But that's just a quick cynical response. And so I think a lot of us would respond cynically, and knee-jerk reaction would be, that's crazy. But I think it's important as an intellectual exercise to take a step back and say, well, let's try to generously understand where he's coming from. So I have two approaches to explain what he's saying. The one is that Torah must be transmitted in an oral way. And that's the nature of Torah Shabbal Peh. It has to be taught from Rabbi to Talmud, from teacher to student, person to person. You need, and we all know this from our times in yeshiva, if you don't have that interpersonal relationship with the teacher, you're losing something. You don't have everything. So maybe he's saying, you hear a lecture, you hear a class, you hear a shiur that's totally devoid of any human being. It's just a line, a recording you're getting online. So that is lacking the Rebbe-Talmud relationship. That makes a lot of sense to me. But we live in the generation of Art Scroll, Sonsino, and Steinsaltz, and Mesivta. And I remember in 1989 sitting around listening to a Dial a Daf cassette from official Shechter on the Daf Yomi. It's already accepted. Yeah, you have a Rebbe. Yeah, you have that interpersonal connection and transmission. In addition to that, you learn from anybody you can get access to. It was wonderful. I didn't meet official Shechter until decades later. But I had been a Talmud of his since 1989. So I'm not sure if we would all accept this approach that you shouldn't listen to Torah online because it's devoid of interpersonal relationship. Another mahalach, I think, is stronger, much stronger. So what's our worry about the internet? We're worried about the shmutz. Very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So I'll give you a mashal. Referential Shechter paskins that if a Baal Tokeya has a heart condition and his doctor tells him, you are not allowed to blow shofar, you might die. And he still goes to shul and blows shofar, and Baruch Hashem, he doesn't die. It was a risk. Referential Shechter says, the Baal Tokeya is not Yotzei, and nobody in the shul is Yotzei. Because it was an Avera, it was a sin for him to blow, he had a heart condition. So it's a mitzvah haba Avera, and nobody's Yotzei. So maybe what this Rosh Yeshiva is saying, the internet is spiritually dangerous. It's a sakana. It's also to go online and listen online because it's dangerous. And if you do, it's a mitzvah haba avera. The Torah you learn is a sin. It's sinful. It's like blowing shofar when you have a heart condition. That, I think, makes a lot of sense. I don't think the Rosh Yeshiva is crazy for saying that. Not everybody would agree. You might say, okay, so let's say you live in a small town. No yeshiva, no base medrash in town. The only base medrash is across the river in the big city. The river is infested with sharks or alligators, something dangerous. Alligators. The sharks don't infest rivers. Alligators. It's impossible, you can't swim across. So it's also for you to swim to the base medrash. Don't go to the base medrash, you could die, the alligators. And if you do swim, and you make it across, and you go to the base medrash, so maybe it's not technically mitzvah haba ba'avera at different times. It's foolish, it's sinful, do not do that. What if there's a bridge? What if you have a boat? Find a safe way to get to the other side and go to the base medrash. So that would be okay. I think everybody would say, good, you could go. So when it comes to the internet, we have to find our own bridges, our own boats, that we can do it safely and still benefit from the Torah there. Okay, let's go back to this sifa. So in Flatbush, not long after, a few weeks after, Rabbi Yisrael Reisman and a few others created a Flatbush Asifa. They realized the big Asifa was not for the Flatbush Olam. They created a Flatbush Asifa, which was so much better. I did go to this one in person. And number one, they did not talk down to anybody. They talked to people by Sher Husham as respectfully. It was very, very refreshing. They acknowledged the reality that people live in. And they proposed realistic solutions. It was very, very, very nice. But I think they made one mistake. They made one mistake. Please come in. Come in, Yehuda. Come in, Yehuda. Come in. What they got wrong is they tried to impose a solution on people. And when you try to impose a solution on people in this area, it will fail. It did fail, and it will continue to fail. I thought it was very strategically in error, even though it was a beautifully done event. Because the struggle of the internet, like we've been talking about, is balancing independence and authority. And if your response to that struggle is to push down on authority and say, forget about independence, you don't need it, not going to work. It's guaranteed to fail. The only way to resolve this balance, this struggle, is to offer a solution that gives people the independence while balancing that with authority. You need both. So there's no one answer on how to solve this problem. I'll give you two possibilities that I've seen going around. One is to strongly encourage people to switch to flip phones. Subsidize it, pay for it, give away free. There's a guy giving away free flip phones. If people will do, and the mashgichim come over to the guys in yeshiva, and they don't yell at them. They say, look, you can get a free flip phone. I strongly encourage it. A little peer pressure helps. All that together is a way of letting people choose to get rid of the internet. That is very powerful because you give them their independence. They choose that. Another way, there's a fellow Rabbi Eli Samuel who's going to be honored at the Yeshiva Chavas Chaim dinner in a few weeks. He created his own operating system, so he controls a smartphone and determines with his posek, and I sat down with his posek, decides which apps are allowed and which apps are not allowed. And now we have a fully controlled, I'm sure someone could break through it, but you have to be a real expert. A normal high school guy cannot break through it. You can still get online banking, and you can still get Hebrew books, you can still get Torah anytime, and those types of apps, so you have access to some degree to the internet, but you still have control, and that's another way that people can opt on their own through independence and choose a healthier way.
Yisakov the Rav Meir created their own phone for their students with absolutely zero and nothing except call to home, from home, that's it.
Wow. Okay, that's another
That's
way.
the only way that they're allowing the girls to have
So no texting.
phones.
My daughter went to Bishak as a mayor, but years
This
ago.
is something now.
Years ago. Yeah, okay. So, so to finish up, the past 20 years, what this book is about is balancing independence and authority. So the articles in the book, as you read them, you'll see on one level, it's a deep dive into controversial issues of faith and belief. Biblical criticism, women rabbis, faith in a secular age, forgiveness in an age of cancel culture. That's one level. It's a deep dive into controversial subjects. The other level, though, is that it's really a struggle between this independence of, we have so much access nowadays, and on the other hand, authority, and we need both. And that's almost every page of the book is struggling with that, how to deal with, on the one hand, independence that we strive for, we crave, and now we have so much ability for, and on the other hand, authority. Because We want to be individuals, but we don't want to give up our community. We don't want to give up our authority. We don't want to give up our gedolim. We don't want to give that up. And there's no easy recipe. There's no razzle-dazzle, here's your solution. But what we've learned from blogs is that we're not alone in the struggle. And that when we do it right, when we do it in a beautiful way, it creates a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. People see it. My blog was quoted in the New York Times and in the Wall Street Journal. Years ago. So I'll tell you, my grandmother used to say, whatever you do, don't become a rabbi. She used to tell me that when I was young. So when I got smicha, I didn't tell her. But what you know, they quoted me in the New York Times, the Holy Grail of the Jews. She calls me up. I get a call from her, nursing, her old age home in Florida. Are you a rabbi? I couldn't deny it. It was in the paper of record.
Remember they come, they
Paper of
talk to my
record. So the blogs and the internet more in general has changed the communities, and in many ways it's enhanced the religious lives of thousands, and is now a fixture of Torah learning, and we're still struggling to figure out how to deal with that and deal with authority, and in Mr. Hashem we should continue to struggle together and find paths that offer the best resolution so we can be Kadashim Shemaim together. All right, thank you everybody for coming.
Okay, you can cut the
Some
video.
questions?
We'll stop the video, we'll start again with Q&A.
Okay.
We're taking one big group picture one more time.
That's good.